There's a storm coming to the MCU. And a Wolverine, and Nightcrawler, and Rogue, and Professor X. After 20 years of doing their own thing, mutants are surely but slowly entering the MCU. And you know what that means. Time for some reboot fantasy casting. Someone see what Glenn Danzig is up to. Metal and punk pioneer Glenn Danzig for a while was almost as famous for wanting to play Wolverine as he was for his music, even reportedly getting an audition for the part. His chief qualification? Being the exact same height as the character in the comics. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine fans have overlooked X-Men Origins Wolverine and his towering 6'3" height. With a new Logan on the horizon, some fans have expressed a desire to go small. With that in mind, let me present a not entirely out-of-the-box option. Daniel Radcliffe. He's only 5 inches taller than Wolvie in the comics, and while you might not think of the former Harry Potter actor as the world's surliest Canadian, since graduating from Hogwarts, he's taken on a lot of edgier roles like Horns and Guns Akimbo. If we remove the "you must be below this height to ride this ride" restriction, John Wick himself, Keanu Reeves, has expressed interest in wearing the claws. At 6'1", we would still have a tall Wolverine, but with Neo and John Wick, he's proved he has stoic and action down. Splitting the difference, Taron Egerton has been floated as an option as well at 5'9". No matter who it is, they have a difficult act to follow in huge Jackman. Let's be honest, the biggest reason we all want to see the X-Men in the MCU is to see Wolverine fight the Hulk and Rogue and Captain Marvel fight. In the Fox series, lacking a Captain Marvel, Rogue was limited to her base mutant ability to absorb people's powers and memories with no off switch. None of the flying and invulnerability she got when she hit Carol Danvers with her power so hard, Carol forgot who she was. A name put forward a lot recently is the breakaway star of Tim Burton's Wednesday series, Jenna Ortega. While Anna Paquin's Rogue stood in for both Rogue and Kitty Pryde in Wolverine's story on the Fox side, Ortega can bring in that barely suppressed anger and loneliness to the character. At least until she meets Gambit.
Don't flatter yourself, Swamp Boy.
As iconic as Jackman's Wolverine was, Patrick Stewart was so picture-perfect for the role, you'd almost think Jack Kirby and Stan Lee created the character for him. James McAvoy did an admirable job as a young Xavier, but he was forever in the shadow of Sir Patrick. To follow that up, you need to think bold. Since appearing as Gus Fring in Breaking Bad, Giancarlo Esposito has established himself as the go-to for a stern and disturbingly calm bad guy with a plan. Not only has Esposito signaled a desire to do a heel change and play the good guy, he's specifically campaigned to take the chair as the new Xavier. Esposito even took a meeting with Marvel, but was naturally coy about the results. Given that over time Xavier has tightrope walked some ethical lines now and then, Esposito can give that tinge of menace to the otherwise fount of wisdom that Professor X is to his pupils. You can't have the X-Men without Xavier's longest frenemy, Magneto. Magneto is the yang to Professor X's yin, let's all get along approach to mutant rights. But how do you follow the 1-2 punch of Michael Fassbender and Sir Ian McKellen? Chasing prestige will have diminishing returns when those guys are your starting points, so let me humbly suggest Israeli actor Alon Abatboul. Abatboul has a prolific career stretching back to the 80s, appearing in movies in the US and Israel, including roles in Rambo 3, Munich, Fringe, and most recently as the drug lord Avi in FX's Snowfall. He can bring a new energy to the character that a more famous one can, and he has a well-established history of range. He might be a great choice to create a Magneto for the MCU. If there's one character in need of some redemption, it's Scott Summers, aka Cyclops. Sidelined for the Wolverine and Rogue show in the Fox series, he was reduced to the role of teacher's pet, and the increasingly bizarre reason Jean Grey didn't run off with Logan. In the comics, the founding member and often leader plays a much bigger role in the X-Men, and his rivalry with Logan goes deeper than not liking authority, but liking the same woman. To bring Summers into the sunlight, I present to you 2 options. First up, Dave Franco, younger brother to James Franco. Since his beginnings on the series Seventh Heaven, he's established himself as someone who can straddle both dramatic roles and comedy, hopefully loosening up Summers while still giving him authority as leader. At 5'7", though, he's still shorter than our shortest Wolverine pick. Next, Joe Manganiello. How every D&D player pictured themselves in their head. Manganiello can be funny and he's notoriously down for some geek stuff, but most importantly, he's physically imposing enough to stand toe-to-toe with Logan to hash out some differences and bring some edge to Summers.
I wouldn't want to fight me neither. Exactly.
Aurora Monroe, aka Storm, is one of the most prominent and powerful members of the X-Men, but so far she's practically been relegated to cameos even when casting an A-list actor. To play the leader of the X-Men and future Queen of Wakanda if she were to somehow marry T'Challa like in the comics, though doubtful given the character's current status, a pair of Canadians would fit the bill nicely. First up is Olanike Adaliyi. The Canadian-born actor has been in numerous movies and television shows, but might be most recognizable as Shadow's mom in the adaptation of Neil Gaiman's American Gods on Starz, bringing much-needed gravitas to the character. If they want to skew younger to match the growing Wakandan prince, Mona Traore, who played Ben's love interest Jill in The Umbrella Academy, would be a fantastic choice to take Adaliyi's intensity, but with some youthful energy. Let me ask you a question. If you were a young X-Men reader who liked girls, was it Rogue or Kitty Pryde for you? While Rogue was the brash bad girl turned hero, Kitty Pryde was the more reserved and shy. Well, until she went to Japan with Logan and learned how to be a ninja. Despite casting Elliot Page to play the phasing mutant, Kitty didn't get much attention in the Fox series, with Rogue taking the Logan protege role. Who better to play the well-meaning girl placed in outsized circumstances and rising to the task than Natalie Dyer, Nancy from Stranger Things? Dyer has managed to master both being wide-eyed and grounded at the same time. The perfect choice to be Lockheed's caretaker. You gotta have Lockheed. Henry Beast McCoy's intellectual side has been on display in portrayals by Kelsey Grammer and Nicholas Hoult over the course of the Fox series, but Beast is no guy in the chair. In his Beast form, he's also capable of delivering a heavy beatdown. To portray the two equally important sides of McCoy, Luke Evans might be the perfect choice. He's had roles in action pieces like Clash of the Titans and Furious 7 as main baddie Owen Shaw. He's even already played a comic book character. Well, comic book related. He portrayed Wonder Woman creator and professor William Marston in Mr. Marston and the Wonder Women. Another founding member sideline, there's Warren Worthington III, or Angel. Otherwise known as, oh yeah, he was in X-Men The Last Stand. He was the one his dad was creating the mutant cure for. To make the X-Men timeline even more confusing, he appeared just as young again in X-Men Apocalypse as part of Apocalypse's Four Horsemen, Death. Get it? Angel of Death. Anyway, part of why Warren gets sidelined is his powers are kinda specific. He has wings that allow him to fly. After being drafted by Apocalypse, he gained the ability to shoot razor arrows and fly even faster. But that heel turn didn't mean anything if we didn't even remember him from Last Stand. To give him a fair shake, I propose Ross Lynch. Probably best known as Sabrina's love interest and bestie Harvey in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, or as the singer of the band R5, he can grant some angst and innocence to the X-Men's winged warrior. Robert Drake was the second person to be drafted into the X-Men after the obligatory superhero dust-up before the team-up with Cyclops. In the Fox series, he was the boy that Rogue couldn't be with because no touchy. He was also friends turned enemies with Pyro. In the comics, bisexual Iceman was romantically involved with Pyro, which is not what George R.R. Martin meant with the Song of Ice and Fire. He's also dated Psylocke, Kitty Pryde, and Mystique to name a few. He gets around. To play him this time around, consider Maze Runner and Teen Wolf star Dylan O'Brien, already accustomed to being young and with powers that can make you an outcast. Alternatively, they could go with 13 Reasons Why's Brandon Flynn for similar reasons. But you have to have Iceman. I'll explain in a moment. Chris Claremont-era regular Colossus was all but missing in the X-Men franchise, only given a blink-and-you'll-miss-it fastball special where the giant metal Russian tosses the tiny angry Canadian Wolverine somewhere that needs to get messed up fast, but became a star as the Boy Scout foil to Deadpool. Stefan Kapicic has been voicing the more comic-accurate-looking version of the man with the metal skin, but in the MCU, he deserves more than comic foil. Vikings actor Alexander Ludwig, who played Ragnar's only reasonable son Bjorn Ironside. At 6'2", he has the imposing size, as well as the ability to play fierce and vulnerable in the same character. The Umbrella Academy's reluctant team leader Luther was played by Tom Hopper, who is a towering 6'5". He already has the chops for that frustration with a burden he won't put down. You just can't have the X-Men without Marvel Girl. But no one calls her that because that was a terrible name. Jean Grey is one of the more persistent constants in the X-Men universe, and the subject of one of its biggest stories, the Dark Phoenix. We don't really need a third swing at that story, but we do need a Jean Grey, and Lady Bird and See How They Run star Saoirse Ronan might be a good choice. If nothing else, Ronan has displayed range playing rival queens, a moody Sacramento teenager, and aspiring detective. Evan Rachel Wood has also been suggested by some fans as the best choice to take on the power of the X-Men's other psionic. Wood played the simulation robot that led a revolution in the Westworld series, making her perfect for the one that's easy to underestimate, but at your peril. Alan Cummings' Nightcrawler is part of one of the best sequences from a comic book movie ever, as he raids the White House to deliver a message. Cummings' portrayal of the highly religious but demonic-looking teleporter was pretty iconic, but the actor was not a fan of the process of becoming Nightcrawler, and the character was one and done before time flipping gave us a younger Nightcrawler in Cody Smith-McGee. For the MCU, Lewis Hoffman from the Netflix series Dark could be a good choice, for no other reason than he kinda looks like Nightcrawler if Nightcrawler had a human form. Plus, no need for a dialect coach, he's German. For a while, it was assumed that Wanda Maximoff's father was Magneto, but that poor girl has had enough potential fathers to fill a Maury Povich show. There's no question, however, that Lorna Dane is his daughter. She didn't get his eyes, she got his ability to manipulate magnetism. She's tried to leave that superhero life behind, but being the scion of one of the most notorious mutants in the world meant that wasn't in the cards. A member of the current team, including her, would allow for a fresher take on the Magneto and Xavier relationship and rivalry. Bunheads and Licorice Pizza actor Emma Dumont might be the perfect pick for a character forced into a world of superpower struggles by her notorious dad. Firestar might be one of the newer members of the X-Men, but there's one solid reason she needs to be in it. Fans of a certain age, you know where I'm going with this. Iceman and Firestar in a shared universe with Spider-Man? We could get a Spider-Man and his amazing friends team up. You know you want it. If she wouldn't be afraid of being typecast as a woman with fire powers, Abigail Cohen, who plays the fire-controlling fairy in Fate: The Winx Saga on Netflix, would fit the role perfectly. With the Fox series minding the Chris Claremont era of its most iconic stories, the MCU X-Men might distinguish themselves by going with the current storylines with the mutant homeland of Krakoa. That would make 2 colonies with powered residents along with New Asgard. One step closer to Savage Lands.